Hey, good morning. If I have not had the opportunity to meet you yet, my name's Amanda. I'll try to connect with you afterwards. I too plan on beating my kids over to the Kona Ice area. That's probably bad parenting. I'm gonna go before them. Don't act like you guys wouldn't do the same thing. But today's just gonna be an awesome day. I'm so excited just to share with you guys a little bit about what God's been doing in my life. Will you pray with me? God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for every single person that's here. God, would you just bring the word today? Maybe more of you, less of me. I pray that whatever we walked in today with, maybe some of us were a little stressed getting kids out the door, or maybe we have a busy upcoming week and our mind's kind of full with that already. God, we just lay all of that down right now. We pray for open hearts today. In Jesus' name, amen. So today, our focus is going to be all about building the church. So I wanted to start with telling you guys a little bit about how I first started serving. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I actually did not want to start serving because I was devastated about the idea that I was going to mess people up. I had a past. I was dealing with a lot of shame and insecurities. And God started speaking to me about serving in student ministry. This is at our old church in North Carolina. It was not long after I'd given my life to Jesus. And I just remember kind of being like, maybe later, God, just kind of put that a little bit to the side. And then I never got plugged in there. And then we moved and we transitioned here once we got out of the military. And we were actually at another church at the time. And God started speaking to me about that same thing, right? I want you to get plugged in, start serving, get into student ministry. So I then decided to go ahead and start serving as a greeter and an usher, which let me say are awesome, awesome ways to build the kingdom. But the problem was I wasn't in the position that God had me. He wanted me in student ministry for a reason. And so I remember the Sunday, it was during worship. And it was so beautiful, so powerful, and God started speaking to me again about the student ministry, but this time was different. And he made sure I understood that what he was telling me to do, it wasn't like a sweet, hey, you should do that. It was a command, hey, you need to step out and you need to do this. And so God told me if I left the church that day without going up and taking a next step, it was me actually walking in disobedience. And that was so convicting. I started crying, and some of you are shocked. No, I'm just kidding. If you know me at all, I cry at really sad things, but I also cry at really amazing, beautiful things, and kind of anything in the middle. So I want you to imagine that you are this student pastor, okay? And I go up to him. Most people would have been so cool about it. They would have waited till they were done crying and kind of had themselves together a little bit. But I don't do things halfway. So I go up to him, and I'm crying still. And so I tell him, I feel like God is calling me to, start serving in the student ministry. But I kind of feel like I'm going to mess it up. So you probably don't want me serving in your student ministry anyways, Guys, can you imagine if you were him? Okay, we know it was an act of God that he actually wanted to meet with me and have some more conversations. I met with him and his wife. They were so affirming to me and so encouraging, and they helped me take that next step to start serving. And I was entrusted with the 9th graders. I was so excited. I still remember that first day. You know that feeling where God is calling you to do something, but you've waited years and years to do it because you've been so afraid to actually go and take that next step. And so when you finally do it, you're on cloud 9 and you're so pumped about it. And so I got all these journals together for my 9th graders. There's this thing called the Father's Love Letter. It's just so beautiful. If you ever get a chance, Google that. And I had that taped inside each of the journals. I picked out all the snacks, so that way my group was just gonna feel absolutely spoiled. And so I'm trying to get them talking, and there's not a whole lot of talking. And so I'm okay, you know what? We're gonna do something really fun. We're gonna all get together. Let's go, we're gonna go see a movie. We can go skating, whatever you guys want. So the consensus was to go ahead and, go see a movie. So I'm hoping so badly that a lot of them are going to want to see the same movie. And so a couple kind of say a movie. Nobody seemed interested at all. And then one of the girls spoke up, and she said, I've been really wanting to see Magic Mike. And when she said this, all of a sudden, all the heads came up, and everybody's like paying attention. And I'm like, okay, everybody's excited about this movie, you know? And so they're like looking at her, looking at me, and I'm like, yes, guys, I'm gonna take you to go see that movie. It's gonna be so much fun. And so at the end, a couple of the girls were leaving with one of the dads. And so I just like called out, and I was like, hey, listen, be looking for an email, okay? I cannot wait to take you guys to go see Magic Mike. It's gonna be amazing. Can I just tell you guys, the look that dad gave me, it was not pleasant, okay? Like, I literally looked behind me because I'm like, I don't deserve that look. I don't know, does somebody behind me, like, who's he looking at right now? And so I get into the car with my husband, and I'm going like a mile per minute, telling him like all about the service, and I'm telling him all about, you know, our small group time and how I'm gonna take all of them to go see Magic Mike, and he like slams on his brakes. Thank goodness, guys, we were still in the church parking lot, because like I talk really fast, so by the time he already knew everything before we'd even pulled out of there. And he's like, I'm gonna need you to say that again. And so, well, I'm gonna take them to go see Magic Mike, and then afterward, no, Amanda, what do you think that movie's about? And I was like, I think it's like a documentary about, obviously, like the famous basketball player, Magic Mike. And he's like, sweetheart, that's Magic Johnson, not Magic Mike. You have just agreed to take a bunch of students, okay, to go see, in case you like are not familiar with that movie, how could I put it? Male dancers. And so I like was panicked, guys. I was like, oh my gosh, it took this long to start serving, and this is like my last day already. Thank goodness, guys, that student pastor was awesome. He actually laughed quite a bit when I first told him. And then he made a lot of phone calls to make sure everybody understood that the student ministry was not promoting Magic Mike. I don't know about you guys, but I'm so thankful that we can look to Jesus' example on how he built the church. What I love is if we look at just his example while he was here on earth, there's a few big takeaways. And the first one, he spent time with the Father, right? I think it's Mark 1:35 that says, in the early morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up and left the house and went away to a secluded place and was praying there. We don't just see that once. We don't just see that twice. We see that over and over and over again in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, talking about the importance of Jesus going and spending time with his Father. You see, while Jesus is still God, when he was here, he was also man. So he dealt with a lot of the same things that we deal with, that exhaustion, kind of feeling drained. And so as he's pouring out, he goes back and he spends time with his Father, and his Father's constantly refilling him. And as his Father's refilling him, he's pouring out to other people. And you see this beautiful relationship, this incredible example to look at of what our lives should be like with God, right? Second, serve and develop leaders. Matthew 20:26-28 says, it shall not be so among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So God, right, he came here. He didn't come as like a king and expect everybody to like wait on him hand and foot. He came and he served us. So if God can do that for us, what should we be doing for other people? Who are we serving? Who are we reaching? Do you have, again, now I'm not going to say do you, because I know we all have that person that we are praying for, and that we are just praying that God would bring some people around them, because we know that they're struggling, they're going through some really big things, and that we know that they just need an encounter with the presence of God. Who's that person? I know for me, sometimes when I'm feeling like a little creative, I like to let myself dream about it. And so I'll picture one of my people that I'm praying for right now. I'll picture them driving up to the church, and the parking lot team is full. And so even as other families are coming in, my person comes in, but my person is still seen. And I'll be honest, a lot of times I think in this world, it's easy to feel invisible. And now my person that's been struggling with the idea of feeling invisible and not valued, somebody's already made contact with them, made eye contact, smiled, waved, how are you doing? And then my person comes into the lobby area, and there's greeters everywhere, and the greeters stop what they're doing, and they come up, and they're telling them, we're so glad you're here. And now all of a sudden, walls also start coming down, because, when you first go to a new church, sometimes you're like, okay, is this going to be, weird? Is it going to be everybody has their own people, and I'm just going to be, awkwardly sitting by myself, or, standing there, in a corner in the lobby? What's this going to be like? But my person came in, and they were welcomed, and they were made to feel like it's home. And then that same person, they have kids, so they were taken over to the check-in desk, and they're 10 feet away. And my check-in team, they're like, hey, how are you doing? And they're already engaging the kids. And then they take them, they walk them to the room that their kids are going to be in. And those rooms, each room has 2 leaders serving. So one can focus on teaching, and maybe for my person's kid, they get a little nervous. They're in a new place, and so they need a little extra attention. So that second person serving in there can kind of scoop them up and really becomes their buddy during the service. And then as my person comes in here, the worship team, it's so beautiful, it's so incredible, because what they begin to experience is really an overflow of these worship leaders spending time with God all throughout the week. So my person begins to have an encounter with God because it's just an overflow of Jesus to them. And then the pastor gets up, and the pastor's on fire and is excited and is bringing the word. And what's so cool about this pastor is this pastor allows himself to be real and transparent, and maybe voices some different things that he's struggling with or has struggled with. And then all of a sudden my person's like, wow, okay. So even pastors deal with this. And now all of a sudden a personal connection has been made. And now that pastor doesn't seem like some far away, distant person like sometimes we view God. But now he just seems real, personable, I can go up and have a conversation with him. Do you ever take the time just to kind of dream about what that looks like for your person? That would be my ideal thing. And then I know you guys are like, oh my gosh, how much longer are we gonna hear about her person? Hang in there. As my person leaves and goes into the lobby, that same person, that same greeter that welcomed them, then gives them their number and asks to meet up and to go out to lunch together. And then this beautiful relationship ends up happening. Fast forward a long time later, and this person accepts Jesus, and it's beautiful. That's kind of in my head how I picture things. But it's just awesome, okay? While we may not be able to be for that person what we would want, maybe that person lives out of state, we wish we could go and serve at that church and be that person. There's other people, I want you to think about, specifically, I'm even gonna talk about over summer. There are gonna be people that are gonna walk through those doors over summer, and people have been praying them to get them through those doors. We get to be for that person walking in through the doors what we wish other people would be for our person. We can be intentional. We can stop what we're doing. We can stop rushing out the door. We can break out of our circle of conversation with our friends that maybe we've been in life group with, and we can go and we can reach them. So Jesus served. He also developed leaders. I think sometimes we can overcomplicate what developing leaders looks like. So we're gonna break it down 2 simple, easy ways, right? And hang on, I feel so sure probably somebody in here is going, okay, develop leaders, I'm not a leader. So I'm gonna go ahead and tune out now because I'm not a leader. Okay, if you are a Christ follower, you are a leader, because as I'm following Jesus, I am called to lead other people to him as well. So you are a leader. Now that we're all on the same page, we're gonna move forward. So there's 2 big parts of developing a leader, and it's simple. I'm gonna love people like Jesus, and I'm gonna do what Jesus did, which was invite people along with you to do life with you. I love this verse, John 13:1. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Jesus loved so deeply. And obviously, I think a lot of us know his love for us. I mean, he was willing to sacrifice and lay down everything, his own life, for us. I feel like there's no greater picture of that. And as we choose to love somebody, I don't think we need to overcomplicate it. Maybe it means at work, somebody, we go to get a coffee. Hey, can I get you a coffee? My treat. That's loving somebody. Hey, we know that somebody at work or in our neighborhood, hey, they just had maybe a death in the family, or maybe they lost their job, and we get an opportunity to love them by providing a meal for them. It doesn't have to be complicated. Jesus invited people to do life with him. I look at Jesus' example as he's sitting here and he sees the disciples and he's starting to invite them to come and do life with them. What are these disciples beginning to witness, and what do they get to see? They're seeing people that, were blind, but now that they can see. They're seeing people that were dead, but now they've been raised to life. They're hearing Jesus preach, but they're like, man, he preaches different than anything I've ever heard before, because he preaches with authority, because he is the Son of God. They're seeing Jesus reach out, and he's being a voice for the voiceless, the people that everybody else is pointing their finger at, and they're going, hey, did you hear what so-and-so just said? Jesus is over there, and he's hanging out with them. And the disciples are getting to see this. And it's so amazing. The same Jesus that did all of this, he's in all of us. When we make that decision to follow him, he's with us. He's alive in us. We should be serving. We should be loving people. We should be inviting people to do life with us. And I really want to challenge you over summertime. It's so tempting. I was so convicted. I looked at my planner for June and July, and it was so full of all these different things that I'm wanting to do over summer. And I felt like God was speaking to me. When did you ask me? What about kingdom things? Guys, how many of us, we're not even going to raise our hands or anything, okay? But just how many of us can think about our summer? Did we pause and ask God, who do you want me to connect with? Who do you want me to be intentional with? Who needs to do life with me? And maybe you've been hearing about life groups and you're like, hey, listen, my summer's full already. I want to go and do these other things. Can I just lean in for a second? Maybe you being in that life group isn't about you. Maybe it's not about me. Maybe it's about the other people that are in that group, and there's something that you have, something that you're going to bring to that group, that you're going to see marriages healed, you're going to see people come to Jesus, you're going to see people who have been hopeless all year long since COVID happened, and now they're beginning to experience hope again. You're going to see people that have been isolated and hurt and don't even know how to re-engage with other people, and you get to help with that. You get to be the bridge for that, because we are the church. That is the church's responsibility. It's not just invite them on Sunday and then hope that the pastor can take care of them as well as every single other person that's in the church. It's we invite them to church, and then we're going to be intentional to invite them to life group. Hey, maybe we sit in with them to go do growth track, because we want them to know that God values them, and we want them to know that God has a plan for them. And that's one of the awesome things that I love about Growth Track. My daughter, who's going into 6th grade, she just completed Growth Track. And it was so neat listening to her talk in the car. She's like, yeah, we did this giftings test, and this is what it said about me. And that was so cool for her to have that experience. There's people around us that they feel like they can't add any value to things. They don't realize how crazy gifted they are. We got to step out. We got to bring people along with us. Third, Jesus intentionally reached the lost and the hurting. Luke 23, 39 through 43. Jesus is on the cross, and there's 2 others on either side that are hanging. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus answered him, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus is on the cross. His body has been beaten and broken. He's literally bleeding and in the process of dying. And on top of his physical state, let's talk about emotionally, mentally where he's at. The person he's been in relationship with for all of eternity, he's now feeling what it's like to be completely separated from them. Because while he's on that cross, he's taking the weight, all of our sins, so that way we don't have to go through that. Can you imagine what that must be like? But yet, while Jesus is in the process of bleeding, in the process of dying, he's still leading. He still has a kingdom perspective from spending time with his Father. He's still building the kingdom. What would we do if we were in that situation? Not even in that situation. What do we do in our own lives? When we're bleeding, do we keep bleeding? I know for me, a huge temptation is when I'm bleeding to want to stop bleeding. What did Jesus do? What is Jesus calling us to do? Not everything, right, is like an attack from the enemy or anything like that, but spiritual warfare is real. And so I think about how maybe the enemy is watching and he sees somebody and they're advancing, they're taking ground back that the enemy has stolen from them, that the enemy has stolen literally for generations back, and they're advancing, they're taking ground back. They're becoming more and more Christ-like. And not only are they doing that, but they're taking other people with them. And chains are falling off the people that are coming with them because as they get closer to Jesus, they become freer. And so the enemy starts putting some stumbling blocks. Maybe it's a health thing, maybe it's a marriage thing, maybe it's a family thing, a finance thing, a job thing. Because he wants you to not only stumble, he wants you to crash and burn. Because he knows if he can get you to crash and burn, what does that look like for your kids? If he can get you to crash and burn, those people that you have been taking along with you, he hopes that when you crash and burn, the others will take note of that and they'll crash and burn. Why is it, as the church, it seems like one of the very first things we cut when we are bleeding is kingdom things? We still go and we still do all the other things. But we stop being a part of life groups. We stop leading life groups. We stop being in community with people. We stop serving. We cut those things, the very things that are probably keeping our heads above the ground, the very thing that are probably keeping the people around you, the people within your circle of influence above the ground. Let's make a commitment today that even while we're bleeding, we're going to keep leading. Because there's people around us. Over summer, there's people going to be walking through those doors, and they need us. They need us to be that example of Jesus, that even when we're bleeding, we're going to continue to keep leading. And while we're leading, we're going to be able to see and witness and watch God perform miracles in other people's lives. He wants to keep working through you. And I think actually one of the probably most powerful times in our lives where we even have a greater impact is actually when we're bleeding. For me, I think I may have shared this story a while ago, but when I first came to Jesus, it was at a church in North Carolina. And we're going to backtrack for a minute. When I first moved there, I didn't know anybody, obviously, but I'll tell you what, man, that shame, that hurt, that pain, those insecurities, that feeling like you're not valued, like nobody could love you, man, those were like chains and weights. I mean, it was very crippling. And I knew when I moved there that I wanted to do something different. I knew I needed God. I just was so incredibly hungry for him. And then I met this amazing, amazing gentleman who I went to go get my military ID card. And he was standing there, by the desk. They were swamped, guys. Like, I'm talking, the wait was horrible. I mean, they're probably way overworked at the moment. And I see a picture behind his desk. And it's like a picture a child has drawn. And it has a cross, and it has a lion. And I was like, are you a Christian? Because I never, I like to think I'm, like, really, like, cool and, like, calm and, like, collect about things like that. But obviously, I don't think I'm, like, very subtle or any of that. And so we end up having a conversation, and he invites me to his church. Now, he first started with the Sunday services. And I'm telling you, I started to feel hope in the conversation, and then I felt like it was coming crashing down because it was Wednesday night. And I'm like, okay, I cannot wait till Sunday. I really don't think I can even wait. I don't know that I can last that long. And all of a sudden, I started feeling really down. And then he's like, but if you don't want to wait that long, I'm like, yes. We have a Wednesday night service. Guys, I was so excited, right? Like, so excited. I was so hungry for it. And so anyways, I ended up getting his information, him and his wife, and I went to that church Wednesday night. And as I pulled up, I knew I was going to end up giving my life to Jesus. I knew I wanted to live differently. I knew the way that I was living was just tearing me apart. And before I left the service, I gave my life to Jesus. And when I was leaving, this amazing, amazing girl, her name's Christine, she stopped me and had a conversation with me and, got my number. And can I just say, I think we can all relate to this, right? Okay, it's Wednesday night. She's worked her job. She's come there now. Like, she's probably tired and ready to go home and do her things. She's got her own plans. But how awesome is it that she was still so kingdom focused? She still saw me. And can I tell you how much that meant to me, that somebody would see me, that I was worth it for somebody to stop and engage and have a conversation with? And so we ended up going out. We had a meal together. She invited me to a life group. And at that life group, I ended up meeting 4 other women that really became instrumental in me growing spiritually. And I think we have a picture just with 2 of the other girls. You talk about leading while you're bleeding. The one in the burgundy purple shirt, her husband had just been deployed, and she was so intentional with me. Her life had been completely flipped upside down. There were times where she was supposed to speak to her husband and she didn't know if he was okay or not. She'd see the things on the news, and so in the middle of all of that, she continued to lead. She continued to serve. She continued to love me where I was at. She continued to lead and engage me, as did Christine and several other ladies. I'm talking texts, accountability for where am I at on Sundays. Even when, by the way, fun little side note, I met my husband in that life group as well. Even accountability for that relationship. And I didn't super receive it well in the beginning. But now, I really value and treasure that these were women that loved Jesus so much that they were willing to give me an equal measure of grace and truth, that they wanted to see me continue to take steps towards him. Who are the people that are around you? I've had the honor of leading children's ministry at different churches now for 7 years. And it's just so incredible. I've had the opportunity to lead children to Jesus, to just teach about how amazing he is, how loving he is, how much he cares for each of them, how he's got big plans for them, and how they can be world changers, not when they're 20, but they can be world changers right now at 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. These women help me to take those next steps. There's people that God has placed in each of our lives that he wants us to help them take those next steps. There's people in your lives right now that they may be called to be pastors. They may be called to lead or serve in student ministry or children's ministry or help with life groups or women's ministry, men's ministry. There's people in your lives right now that they're gonna be leading people to Jesus that aren't even born yet. Who are those people? In just a moment, we're going to take communion. And I know, hey, this is the last service. You know, some of us may want to go, and we've got plans with family, want to grab lunch. We got all the things in store. Pause for just a minute. Really invite and allow God to speak into you. Who's the person that I'm called to love over summer? Who is the person that I'm called to invite to do life with me over summer? So if I'm going and I'm gonna spend time at the pool, I'm gonna bring somebody with me. If I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna bring somebody with me. If I wanna go grab coffee or go do a park day, I'm gonna bring somebody with me. And when we go out, you're gonna have an opportunity to sign up for life groups. What if we ask God, hey, these groups are my comfort zone, but hey, that one is not really my comfort zone. Where do you want me? And not just where do you want me, what friend do you want me to invite? What coworker? What neighbor? Who else needs to be in this life group with me? Let's go ahead and pray. God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for all these incredible people. God, our heart and our focus as a church, we want to continue to build the church over summer. God, we are praying and believing that this is going to be one of the most influential times of growth for our house. That we're gonna see people step out and bring new families in like never before. We're gonna hear stories of people not just inviting families on Sunday, but inviting them over to their homes, going out and doing different things with them. We're gonna see over summer, we're believing, God, we're gonna see people come to know you for the first time. We're gonna see people rededicate their lives. We're gonna see marriages that are on the brink of divorce be healed. We're gonna see people that come in that they are literally carrying chains and weights. And we're gonna see that greeter, the parking lot, the children's ministry, the student ministry, all the different areas that serve, we're gonna see them make an impact. And every time we greet somebody, all of a sudden a chain starts breaking off. And then they come into worship and another chain breaks off. And then we hear the message and another chain breaks off. God, thank you that we get to do this. Thank you that we get to partner with you and we get to be a part of lives being forever changed, of people going from death to life. What an honor, what a privilege. We love you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.